Hello everybody and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. Zoe here from Learning Boosters. Today's session is about mindfulness. It's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, so I wanted to just give it a type of definition of what mindfulness means, because people think it's such a buzzword that, there's a lot of different sort of interpretations of it. So I wanted to give a really simple idea about what my interpretation of mindfulness is and how I use it with students and adults. So mindfulness is really just an awareness of breath, mind and body. Whereas if we're thinking about meditation, meditation is basically awareness of nothing. So that's the difference. So we're going to talk about mindfulness today. So mindfulness can and will improve your mood, your self-esteem. It should reduce your anxiety and help you to manage depression. Now, these are all issues that as a teenager and even as an adult that I've had to deal with myself. So I've actually studied this quite a bit. And I use different methods with my students to help them in cases of when they're feeling anxious and stressed and what they can do. So today's session, I'm going to talk about what I perceive mindfulness is, 3 aspects of mindfulness. And lots of people say to me, yeah, I understand what it is, but how do I start? So that will be the third thing that I'll talk about, is how to start mindfulness. So the goal of mindfulness is to train your mind to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment or criticism. Okay, so yes, I am reading some of this because I've made myself notes. It helps to keep me on track. So let me say that again. The goal of mindfulness is to train your mind to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment or criticism. So to train your mind to purposefully focus your attention on the present. So rather than thinking about what you need to do in 10 minutes time, or what you need to do tomorrow, or what I've got to get done this afternoon, or what happened yesterday, or I had this fight with my partner, or whatever it might be, because we're a go, 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 go world these days. This is simply bringing things down to that focus on the present. Doesn't have to be a long length of time that we do this intentionally, but it's really good to, when you're in a moment, to actually be in the moment, if that makes sense, and not clicking away on your phone while you're trying to talk to someone or whatever it might be. So the brain is a muscle, and like any muscle, it needs exercise. It's like when we go to the gym and we exercise all our other muscles, so that those muscles are going to help support our skeleton and make us feel better, and we'll be healthier and all that sort of thing. So it's the same with the mind. The mind needs to be exercised too, so that it can be healthy. So it's a muscle that when we're in those anxious, negative, low self-esteem sort of places, it's used to work, the brain is used to working in a certain way. So it does take practice for us to exercise this muscle. Now, I've been practicing mindfulness for a very long time, and I won't stop practicing it. So it's not something that we do for 30 days or do for a week or do for a couple of times a week or whatever, and that's it. It's actually an ongoing process, like it is when we go to the gym and we exercise the rest of our muscles. It's something that needs to be done regularly, even every day. I do it every day, same as meditation. I do it every day, so that I am setting myself up for that success. So when we're stressed, let's talk about that. So when we're stressed or we're anxious or we've got that low self-esteem, our brain goes straight to the part called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala causes the fight or flight response when we're under stress. So it causes that fight or flight response to fire off. This happens because that part of the brain has sensed a threat. So the amygdala is wired to keep us from harm. That's a natural thing, a normal thing. But in our modern society, we're just so busy. The world is so busy. Our brains are perpetually perceiving many triggers, stress triggers. So there's things happening all the time, things coming, sensory things happening all the time coming in. So it's perceiving these in a way that floods our body with the stress hormone, cortisol and adrenaline. So this in turn causes what we perceive as panic attacks, stress or anxiety. Okay, so when this happens in my actual experience, I've learnt to do the opposite of what my mind and body is telling me to do. So what it generally happens is I want to fight you or I want to get out of here. So I try and do the opposite. Unless it's an obvious, someone is threatening you physically, then that's a different kettle of fish altogether. So in this situation, what I generally tend to do is I breathe. And folks, it really is just that easy to breathe. Because what you're doing when you take those breaths and you're in that present moment of breathing, noticing the breath going in, noticing the breath going out, and we'll talk about this in a little more detail in a minute on how we start. What you'll notice is that it calms down that part of the brain, the amygdala. And what it does is it makes you feel quiet. So you do nothing and you just breathe. You say quietly to yourself, all is good, I am safe, everything is fine. And what you're feeling is a psychological and physical response. But the threat may not be real. So I hope that's clear to everybody on the way that part of the brain actually works. Unless, of course, it's obvious someone's in front of you with a knife trying to rob you. That's different altogether. But what I'm talking about is because we're bombarded with sound, things to do, people to see, places to be, jobs to do, kids to look after, our lives are impacted with a lot more noise and sensory input these days than it ever has been before. And because of that, this amygdala part of the brain cannot tell the difference between the stress building up from these sensory inputs and a real threat. So when we're in that over-sensory mode, the cortisol and the adrenaline kick in, and that fires off that part of the brain that actually becomes a fight or flight mode. Okay, so what we do is we don't do the opposite. We don't run away from it. We just breathe and just tell ourselves a couple of things like, everything is fine, everything is good. Because it is possible to actually train the amygdala not to relax and not to react through mindfulness and through this simple breathing technique that we're going to talk about in a minute. Through these techniques, this extreme reaction of the fight or flight will reduce. It'll get quite reduced. Okay, so it'll make it a lot easier for you to deal with those stresses that happen in your life. So you're not firing off at the kids every 5 seconds because the breathing and the mindfulness is actually bringing that down. So the first thing to do in these situations is to recognise there is a problem. And finding that release from it. So the techniques that I'm going to be talking about it's not going to fix you for life because it's an ongoing thing. All right. So as I said before, you don't do it once or twice and that's it, I'm fixed. It's ongoing. It'll help you to deal with the intensity of your psychological and physiological responses. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to stop that part of the brain firing off all the time every 5 seconds that raises your stress level. So you need to be brutally honest with yourself about this and about the things that you want to change. And by taking this action and by practicing it regularly. So mental health is real. We all know that. We all know people that are dealing with chronic mental conditions. And we all have good days and we all have days that aren't quite so good. Your trauma is not your fault, but your healing is 100% your responsibility. Okay, so you have to put yourself first in this case. It's not selfish, and it would not only benefit you, but it'll also benefit your family and your friends and the people around you. They'll notice a difference in you. Your kids will come to you more often with issues that they're having to deal with because you're calmer and you're not so reactionary. So let's talk about understanding the three major aspects of mindfulness. So the first one is intention. So your intention is what type of hope do you get from practicing mindfulness? So hopefully we will get those lower, anxiety and stress, and a deeper understanding of self-esteem and what we can do to help ourselves and be responsible for our own reactions. The second one is attention. So mindfulness is about paying attention to your inner and outer experiences. So your first reaction might be, the kids might do something and your first reaction, normal reaction, or what you call a normal reaction because of how overstressed you are, is to fire off at them and tell them off. That's something to look out for, and that's something that the mindfulness techniques will help to reduce for you. So your first reaction won't be anger. The third aspect of mindfulness is attitude. So mindfulness involves paying attention to certain attitudes such as curiosity, acceptance, and kindness. So some examples might include, so you might want to pay attention to what it is you're thinking and feeling, which is hard. It's hard to slow down in this very busy world that we have these days. But to be able to handle those stresses and anxiety better, we need to do this for ourselves. So another example might be to be in the here and the now. So try to intentionally accept and notice everything you do. So keep your mind on what you are actually doing and saying at the present time. So in lots of conversations that we have with people, we can tend to be thinking about how we're going to respond and not actually paying attention to what they're saying to us. So there might be something important that we miss when we're trying to talk to someone and help someone. So we need to be in the present moment. We need to listen exactly to what they're saying, not thinking about how we're going to actually reply to them. So another example might be just simply to accept yourself. And I know that sounds easy and it's really hard to do sometimes, but treat yourself the way you would treat a good friend or treat a child. So it's basically being kind. And another example might be to focus on your breathing. So you breathe into a count of 5, you hold it for 5 and out for 5, and you do this 5 times. So it might be something like in, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you do it again. So when you're breathing in, actually breathe into that whole count of 5. Don't go and hold it. So you're going in, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's also quite meditative. I find I go into this sort of other space when I'm doing this. And this, again, will calm down that part of the brain, the amygdala, that actually fires off all the time. So when you first start the process of mindfulness, you'll probably feel uncomfortable, and that means it's working. So you might have lots of thoughts, memories, emotions, and feelings. They'll all intrude. They'll all want to get in there because that's the way your amygdala is actually used to working. And it's quite normal. So we're so used to feeling and thinking in a particular way that to do anything different, it will feel kind of strange and alien to start with. But persist. You know, even if you only do this like a couple of times of the day, in the morning when you wake up and at night time, it takes probably 2 or 3 minutes. And if you keep going, you'll have some days when all those thoughts are just intruding too much. Still persist. Still keep it going. So what I'm suggesting you do is, number one, accept yourself and others for who you are, and that you are as you are. 2, acknowledge your feelings. Acknowledge them, but don't dwell in them. Don't live in them. 3, pay attention to your thoughts. Think positively as much as you can without judgment. Number 4, accept your limitations and go all out to build on your strengths. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build up that part of the brain to help you in those stressful situations. Number 5, recognize when you need a change, when you need to change your thoughts because things are just, you know, another day, another load of crap, you know, same day, same crap. That's probably a mindset that you need to have a little look at and see if you can do something simple like this breathing to calm all that down and change those mindsets to more of a positive, calm thinking. So a lot of people say to me, yeah, that's all very well, but, you know, how do I start? Well, I've given you some suggestions on the 5 in, hold for 5 and out for 5, and do that 5 times. Try and do it where you're not going to be disturbed by kids or pets or phone or anything else. You know, I used to go and sit in my car and do it because I had kids running around and I had this, that and the other. And I'd say to my husband, I'm going to do my 5, and he'd understand immediately. And I'd go into the car and I'd lock the doors. The kids would know I'm going to do my 5. You do not disturb me unless the house is on fire or you've cut something off and you're bleeding really badly. Okay, so, and that's not being selfish. That's putting a couple of minutes a day aside for you to help you. So remember, it's not being selfish. Choose a posture. So choose your environment. If you can make it inside rather than outside, it's better because then you can easily, it's easier in an enclosed environment than outside because you've got birds and all the rest of it, haven't you? So choose your place. Set your family up to know that if you say, I'm going to do my 5, they know not to disturb you for 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes, folks. Everybody can find 2 minutes. Go into the toilet, lock the door so the kids can't get in, put the toilet seat down and do it in the toilet if you have to, sitting on the toilet. Choose a posture. So one that's comfortable for you, but one that you're sitting straight in. Don't lie down. And you haven't got your back against the chair, okay? So you're actually sitting with your feet flat on the floor. If you sit back and you're too comfortable and you're leaning back in the chair or you're lying down, you could find you fall asleep, which is not what we're trying to do. It's a great way to go to sleep. This actual mindfulness will help you to ease your mind to go into sleep. But when you're doing it a couple of times a day for 2 minutes, you don't want to be lying down. You don't want to go to sleep. Start with an aim. So your aim might be, okay, I'm going to do the breathe in, hold for 5, out for 5. I'm going to do that 5 times, and I'm going to do it in the mornings. That's an aim, and I'm going to do it every morning. Okay, that you're setting yourself an intention or an aim. And then you might build that up to 2 times a day. And then you might build it up doing like it through 6 times. So you're building it up to a 5-minute slot, even a 10-minute slot, if you can manage that. So when you're doing this, you shift your attention to your body. Be kind to yourself, by the way. If you get disrupted by thoughts and feelings and emotion, remember, they're normal. Just say, let's put that away in the file. I'll file that away. I'll think about that in 5 minutes' time when I'm finished. You don't have to do it then and there. Okay, or a bit of paper beside you and write it down. Oh, that's right, I've got to do that. And then go back to what you were doing, the mindfulness breathing. So you're concentrating on your breathing, as is obvious. So you slow breath in through your nose and a slow breath out through your mouth when you're counting that 5 in. You can do it in through your nose or mouth. Doesn't really matter. Whatever makes you more comfortable. Notice when your attention wanders, and you will find your thoughts wander. You may get itchy in places. That happens too, or you may want to move around. Notice these things and let them go. Don't dwell on them. Don't think, oh I've got an itchy bit on my foot. Oh. Go back to your breathing. Just keep on with your breathing. Again, say to your mind, oh, let's put that in a file. We'll get back to that in a minute. Notice your emotions and let them go gently. Don't beat yourself up about the fact, oh, I'm meant to be doing this now. I'm not meant to be thinking blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah, you are actually. And emotions will come in. Remember, it's normal. Take a break if you need to. If you do this once through the 5 times, take a little break. Have a little walk around the room. Have a little sit or a little bit of a wriggle, and then do it again. Do it through 5 times again. Give yourself permission to put all thoughts aside. So if your mind is racing and you just can't stop it, you've just got to gently say to yourself, it's okay. I'll file that away. I'll come back to it later. This is what I'm doing now. Got to redirect your mind. Yeah. So choose a quiet place. We've talked about that, without interruptions, no pets, in the same room every time. So every time you're doing this, it's the same room. Even if you're sitting on the edge of your bed and having to do it, it's the same room. You're getting your mind into this routine of doing it. Choose the same time every day, if you can. Okay, so you might get up 10 minutes earlier than the kids and whoever else, your partner might. Okay, and you'll do it before anyone else wakes up in the morning. And do it 10 minutes before you go to bed. Let anyone in the house, as I've already said, know what you are doing and that this time is non-negotiable. And sometimes we have to be that emphatic, particularly when you're a mum and you've got young kids. They follow you and they stand there while you're trying to go to the toilet, don't they? So this is a non-negotiable time for you. The kids have to learn that when you say, I'm doing my 5, they go to dad for anything. All right? Or if you're living on your own and you're a single parent, as best you can, set them up with something and set a timer and say to them, Mummy needs 5 minutes. Mummy's going to do her 5 minutes, and set them up with the timer. Okay, these are routines you can get kids know, and they're pretty cluey kids. They'll clue in pretty quickly how essential this is for you, and it's non-negotiable. There's no talking about it. There's no negotiating on this, that, or the other. If I do this, will you give me a toy? Whatever. No, this is non-negotiable time for mum. So this is your time, remember? You deserve it. You deserve to have more peace of mind, less racing around in your head. It's such an easy thing to do. And a lot of people say to me, but that's so easy. Yeah, that's right. It's how it's meant to be. So if you do this for 30 days constantly, twice a day, research has shown that that part of the brain, the amygdala response, so the fight or flight, will reduce substantially. You'll be a happier, calmer person. You'll get on better with people. Doesn't matter if they're family or workmates, or even a workmate at work that usually gives you the grots. You'll find that you'll be able to accept who they are and what they are. They're not your type of person. That's okay. This will reduce those thoughts of fight and flight and stress and anxiety quite substantially. So to gain knowledge and acceptance, the way to do mindfulness, it is rather necessary to have a professional in to guide your practice. So this breathing exercise I've given you is a very first baby step. If you're finding that it helps a little bit, but you need more guidance, please go and see a professional. There is no harm in seeing anybody. There is no harm in letting people know I need that little bit of extra help. Let anyone in that house know what you're doing and why you're doing it, that it is a non-negotiable time. So essential that it's non-negotiable and that you will not be disturbed And as I said, be emphatic about that time. I really hope this has helped. So go back and do the breath 5 in, count to 5, and you can do it in your head. You don't have to do it out loud. Hold it for 5 and then out for 5. Do that 5 times. I really hope this has helped. Go and see a professional if you think that that's the next step after doing this for 30 days, or you do it for a week and you're finding stuff's coming up and you need help with it. Let me know how you go in the comments box below. I'd love to hear how everybody's getting on with it. And I'll see you here for Wisdom Wednesday next month. Take care.